Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Longhorn Radio.
We are your hosts,
Elizabeth
and Shreya, and you're listening to our second edition of a Women's History Month episode, Women's Response to Our Environment.
Before we get into today's episode, here are a few announcements. From the 21st to the 25th is Spring Fling Week. There will be dress-up days every day of the week with the dance after school on Friday, so get excited.
Now that announcements are out of the way, let's get on with the episode.
So it's currently Women's History Month, and we got an exciting new topic to discuss in honor of it. Here to discuss us with the president of Lee High School's very own He for She Club, Faith Hahn.
Hey, Faith.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Doing pretty good? That's good. So you are, as we said, the president of Lee High School's He for She. So why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about the club?
Yeah, of course. So He for She is a club that is dedicated to supporting He for She, which is a United Nations global solidarity movement that basically advocates for gender equality and inviting people of all different genders to talk about feminism and gender equality. And so our main focus as a club is to advocate for feminism and the awareness of it.
Fantastic. So we did have you on last year for our Women's History Month episode, and we talked a little bit about women in our lives that meant a lot to us and what they did. But we're going to be switching it up a little bit. And so recently, the UN announced that their theme this year is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. And they even started the hashtag Break the Bias, which asks people to imagine, quote, a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination. So the UN's He for She heads Women's History Month. So as the He for She Club officer, why do you feel that now is a better time than ever to not only highlight women, but also just the state of the environment, or just in general, the advances they're making to help our society?
I think that's a really great question, because I feel like one of the main things our club actually focuses on is the benefits that gender equality has on our society, which includes the environment. And so we've talked about how gender equity within marriage relationships and gender equity within the workplace all increase productivity and all these wonderful things that we are kind of missing. And instead of kind of seeing gender equality as something we need to fight for in order to gain rights for just women, it's actually something that can be beneficial to everyone, including the environment. So if we work together and if we work to make efforts in order to make the world a more equitable place, we in almost, I guess you could say, in tandem, kind of help the environment as well. And so I feel like that's why they make this focus, is because I think people a lot of the times forget about the kind of domino effect that actually gender equity has. And so I feel like this is actually a really great theme that the United Nations is focusing on.
Yeah, so you mentioned this domino effect. I've sat in on your meetings for He for She, and one topic that you discuss quite often is how this feminist movement is not just about lifting up women, but it's also about lifting up men. So how do you think highlighting women in Women's History Month is also, sort of helping break not only female stereotypes, but also men's stereotypes?
Feminism in itself is the advocation for women's rights on the basis that the genders are equal, but I feel like a lot of people focus on that first part, that it's the advocation for women's rights, which by no means is not something that isn't important. It's very, very important, because women face a lot of inherent discrimination. However, the fact that the genders are equal, I think, is a really important thing that a lot of people leave out, and that's why there's a lot of discrimination against men, and that's why a lot of men feel kind of hesitant to join the feminist movement, because of the label that it puts, that we are all against men and all men are misogynists and things like that. So that's why I just feel like it's really important to also kind of address what the men's rights movement is doing and how they're trying to uplift men and the kind of discrimination that they face, and also all the while also advocating for women's rights and for the inequalities that we face.
Okay, why do you think that highlighting women working to fight climate change supports the hashtag Break the Biases purpose of creating an equal future?
I think it helps create an equal future because of something I said before, because we have to start within ourselves. I think that people forget that when there is dissonance among people, that cannot lead to a productive outcome. And so I just feel like that's a really important topic, that there has to be equity within relationships in order for there to be equity among everyone and there to be true changes in what we see around us.
Of course, yeah. And so do you think that opportunities such as, the fight for climate change or, other movements that, a lot of women are participating in recently, Black Lives Matter and whatnot, is making a difference in what the ultimate goal is, like women being able to move higher up this social ladder and whatnot?
Yeah, I think that awareness on all levels is really important. So as we advocate for other minority groups or other people who have been marginalized, such as African Americans and, other issues that also have been kind of put aside, such as climate change, we inherently bring everyone together. So in a way, because of the fact that we're doing all of these things, we can also bring up women and bring up the feminist movement. And it's also a way for women to further get involved, right? So we're bringing awareness to feminism, but we're also bringing awareness to other things. So I think in that way, shedding light on these new topics in itself is already helping advocate for other issues.
Fantastic. And do you think that you personally have been affected by, this change that we are, making and this progress that we are a part of? Have you ever been, affected by it? Or have you noticed it recently, especially with the pandemic and all that people are doing to try to, help the situation of where we are right now?
Do you mean in terms of climate change, or do you mean
just
in
general? Yeah.
Well, I think it's really great to see more and more people, especially on campus, getting involved in the conversation of what feminism is. Like, one of my officers told me recently that she was like in a group of her friends, and one of them said something, and it was kind of like a little sexist, and it wasn't a huge deal, but one of the guys in the group was like, that's not very he for she of you. And I feel like in that very inherent, just small moment, and hearing that, I'm realizing the kind of impact that just within our school, he for she is kind of having, and the awareness that brings. And I also think on a global level, there's more and more awareness, because I think there is more light being shed on these issues that people can't ignore anymore. Obviously, it's easier to say that in America, where we have more access to social media and it's not as restricting, but there are still some countries like Nigeria and other, countries in Africa and South America and, Asia that all deal with still like arranged marriages. Mm-hmm. And I feel like what's really important is, as a land that we claim is free, I think learning about those. And so I think a new thing that I actually want to kind of advocate with my club is reading books, because I feel like that really helps you gain a new perspective. Mm-hmm. And so I think the emergence of feminist writing and also like social media movements and all that has been really, really great in empowering women. And I want to continue to bring that to our school.
Are there any works of writing that have particularly stood out to you?
Yeah, a lot of my friends know me as a bookworm. I really...
me too!
Yeah, I really enjoy books, but...
So do I.
I think, actually, her TED Talk video was the first thing that actually propelled me to found He for She, like the club. Her name is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Shout out to her. She's great. And so I watched a TED Talk by her, actually. It was one of the resources of the week that we had for He for She.
Yeah.
And it was about, she basically has this book called Americana. And although it's not necessarily a feminist book, definitely her feminist ideals really shine through. And she really is trying to advocate for feminism in her home country, Nigeria. And so I highly recommend books by her. I feel like she really addresses that topic. But obviously, I'm still definitely learning more and more about feminism. I'm still very novice in my, knowledge. But I feel like books are really important. So I feel like Adichie is a really, really great place to start. And I recommend her books.
All right. What is something other than He for She that you are in or choose to do on your own, which you believe is making strides towards supporting women this month?
Supporting women. I don't know if it's necessarily women exactly, but I do have this other club and organization that I work with. It's called Team HPV, and the organization basically works to raise awareness for hepatitis B, which is a virus that infects the liver and causes liver cancer. And so I think maybe not empowering women specifically, but empowering, people of different ethnicities. I feel like it's kind of harder to kind of raise awareness for really specific illnesses. So I think working with a lot of other women in the organization, so some of the people who hold positions of leadership at Stanford's Asian Liver Center who are like women, working with them, I feel like that is very empowering in itself to kind of work with these people towards advocating for a cause I really care about, but also working with all of my fellow officers. They're all girls. Shout out to all of them, Elaine, Mia, and Anika. And so I feel like that has also been really great. So maybe not women specifically, but in terms of awareness, as we talked about before, I feel like is generally really important. So yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that's all for today, Faith. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. We loved having you here.
Thank you to all of our listeners for joining us today. Before we send you off, don't forget to follow the family Instagram account for all things Lee. And remember, you can be a future guest and join us on the podcast to discuss a topic of your choice by filling out the form linked below.
Thank you for tuning into Longhorn Radio. See you next time.
This has been Longhorn Radio.
Shreya
And Elizabeth.
Signing out.
We should include Faith.
Okay, so did I say my name?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Let's start over. Okay. You do it.
Thank you for tuning into Longhorn Radio. See you next time.
This has been Longhorn Radio.
Shreya,
Elizabeth.
And Faith.
signing out.